All right, guess what? It was another pretty cloudy day across the valley today. Good Wednesday evening, everyone. It's 21 News. Chief Meteorologist Eric Wilhelm here, and let's take a deep dive into all things weather here across the Mahoning and Shenango valleys. And we'll start with kind of a broad view of the ice cover or lack thereof on the Great Lakes here in late January. Barely any ice on Lake Erie, which is the shallowest of the Great Lakes and usually the first to freeze over in the winter. And the ice is pretty paltry as well on Ontario, on Huron, Michigan, Superior. It's just in the shallower parts of these waterways that we have some ice, and even that is not a whole lot. It's thickest around Green Bay, but boy, this is pretty paltry stuff. Now, is this unheard of? No. In our sometimes in warm winters in the Great Lakes region, in the Ohio Valley, it's not unheard of, but is it unusual? Is it way below average? Absolutely. Now, last winter, of course, was not exactly a really cold winter, but check out how much more ice there was on this date last year as compared to this year. Here we go. Look at Erie, almost frozen over in late January. And again, it wasn't really a remarkable winter. It was a pretty average January last year. Temperatures in our region were pretty close to seasonable for the month as a whole. This month, of course, has been way, way above average, and therefore the ice has just had a hard time forming. All right, while today was a little bit colder than the last several days, a similar theme today in that there was very little temperature variation. We started at 28, and then we flatlined at 30 this afternoon. It's been between 28 and 34 degrees every hour since about 8 or 9 p.m. Saturday evening. This is now Wednesday evening. That's a long stretch where temperatures have not varied a whole lot. They're not going to vary a whole lot over the next couple of days as well. We got awfully close to seeing some sunshine today, but as I told you last evening, the clearing only got so far to the west. It flirted with I-79, and it certainly turned nice and sunny out towards DuBois along I-80, Clearfield, Clarion, out towards Bellefonte, State College, and Points East. But this far to the west, yeah, we just stayed in the clouds today, and the clouds will hang tough overnight tonight. Quick tour of the U.S. Nothing remarkable in terms of winter weather for an evening on January the 29th. It's just rain down here in the deep south, of course, and out west, snow levels are actually pretty high right now across the Pacific Northwest. So while we do have winter weather advisories and some accumulating snow across the Cascades of Washington and Oregon, the snow levels are high enough that this is just rain for a lot of the valley locations. All right, we had our coldest snap of the entire winter last year at the end of January. These are the high temperatures on today's date last year. We were ahead of the front, so we weren't that cold just yet, but behind the front, it was below zero all day in parts of Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa, the Dakotas as well. And then we fast forward to tomorrow's date, the 30th, and this is when the cold started to make headway around here. And we stayed in the single digits most of the 30th. It stayed below zero in parts of northwest Ohio. And then we were well below zero the following night. So this was as bad as it got in terms of wintertime temperatures last winter. We haven't had anything close to that this year. We're not going to have anything close to that in the foreseeable future. What we are going to have? Clouds. Clouds, clouds, clouds over the next couple of days. Now, while the clearing was east of us today, it may be a little bit west of us tomorrow. There may be some sun trying to break out finally in Columbus and Zanesville, but around here I think we're just pretty cloudy all day, and then we may get grazed by a few sprinkles and flurries before Friday is through. Saturday, we have a trough of low pressure approaching from the north and west, and some precipitation to our south and east. It's kind of a squeeze play for us. We're going to miss most of this, but we may get grazed by a couple of rain and snow showers during the midday and afternoon on Saturday. In the longer range, all right, this is the 8 to 14 day outlook, so this takes us from the first couple of days of February through roughly, what would that be, something like the 10th-ish of February. The cold centered out west, and in the east, the cold is going to have a hard time. Last evening, I showed you an animation kind of illustrating that the pattern would be somewhat more favorable for wintry weather as we got into mid-February. What I'm going to show you this evening is today's run of the European model temperatures compared to average as we go through time here. Here's a Groundhog Day on Sunday showing big warm anomalies in the middle of the country. There's going to be a big dump of Arctic air as we go into that second week of February, but it's not going to be around here. It's going to be centered out west. So let me roll this forward. There's one shot, but then the mother load comes down. Here's the 9th, 10th, 11th of February. Really cold stuff for the Intermountain West, the Pacific Northwest, all the way down into the southwestern U.S. as well. But what we have going on here is the cold dumping out west, but then fighting resistance as it tries to come east. While it will make some headway in the upper Midwest and into Canada, this ridge over the southeastern U.S. is going to fight back some. So there's going to be a time here in the second week of February where we're going to be in between that Arctic air and the mild air to our south and east. It looks like a pretty active storm track. Now, if things come together just right, occasionally, we might see some wintry precipitation out of this. But the cold is not going to really plant its flag in the eastern U.S. as long as that ridge flexes its muscles. So the cold stays centered in Montana and Wyoming and the Dakotas. And all the way through the 12th, 13th of the month, you have a favorable pattern for cold out here, but it's very unfavorable in the southeast Atlantic and up into the northern Atlantic as well. There's not much blocking going on, so this cold just has a very hard time centering itself here instead of out here. So I do think we can see some wintry weather in February. I do think that we have a chance of seeing more snow in February than we had in January, which isn't saying a whole lot. And I still think it can get cold, but I think that the best chances for severe winter cold as we go into that second week of February will be out west. The first week of February here looks mild in general. The second week maybe back and forth, a little stormy, but not consistently cold. Nothing like the cold snap we had during late January of last year. We'll do an official February forecast on weather for Weather Geeks and 21 News at 6 and 11 coming up this Friday, the final day of January. I'll put out an official forecast featuring temperatures compared to average and snowfall and precipitation in general compared to average. So you can look forward to that on Friday. Thanks for checking out the Wednesday evening weather for Weather Geeks. I'll see you back here on Thursday.